All right, if our panelists will go ahead and turn their audio and video on, we will get started today. We are, all the recording is on, so welcome to everyone. Just a few logistics before we get started. If you do have questions during today's session, please ask them using the Q&A that you probably just saw in the little welcome video, and we'll answer all of those. Liz is going to mention a few things related to Commerce Lexington, and then this recording will be on YouTube later tonight, as are all of our other 4 o'clock focuses. So if you've got questions, ask them today, and we'll get them in here. That way everybody can benefit from them. And with that being said, Liz, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you all so much. Today's topic is one that I'm interested to hear about myself, because when you think you're doing the right things and then all of a sudden you're scared to death because you haven't been doing the right things. So it's something that's really crucial for our members to know about. I do want to mention tomorrow we also have an event. It's our Spotlight Series presented by Wealth South. And it's going to be some great local speakers, tons of healthcare professionals that are just top notch. And they're kind of going to talk about the COVID impacts, challenges that have happened, and the research that's ongoing as far as vaccines and the new things that are on the horizon. So it's going to be a great event, and I will put the registration for that in the chat. And so you all, there's plenty of time to sign up for that. So we will, on that note, I will go ahead and send it to Bill to do introductions and get this started.
Well, so I'm sorry, I'm answering a very first question that came in. Today we have Glen of Crowe, and formerly Crowe Horwath, if any of you have been around for a while and remember that name, and also Nick Conness from Pelycon. And both I do consider friends of mine, so I will say I may be a little bit biased, and the conversation may be a little freer than normal. Glen runs the cybersecurity practice for Crowe, or at least that's how I know it, making sure that managed security is taken care of for all of their clients, not only just here in the Bluegrass region, but across the nation. Nick, I've known for, 15 years, maybe, Nick, where we started working together a long time ago. And he started a company in 2016 and now serves a number of companies, small to mid-sized businesses, as a managed service provider. And they continue to grow through referral, which is great. That's a testament to their own business. And with that being said, we're going to jump into some things. First thing I'd like for you guys to do is to go ahead and give yourself an introduction. And when I do mention this, just because of all the general Zoom confusion that happens from time to time, Glen, if you'll go first, we'll choose G before N. So that way we all know who's going to answer something first. And Debbie's on here, and she's in a really great role today, because Debbie, as the solopreneur, gets to wonder, what is it like always working remote? And I've got 2 guys, maybe 3 on here that can answer security questions. So we've got Debbie being able to serve that audience for our Commerce Lexington members, Nick being able to serve the small and medium enterprise companies, and Glen actually has clients across the whole spectrum. So hopefully this is a great session on cybersecurity and the things that we need to know. So with that being said, Glen, if you don't mind giving a little background on yourself, and then Nick right after, and then I'll jump into some questions.
Sure. Thanks, Bill. I really think you did this based on age. Thanks for being respectful and not calling me out for that. All right. And what's great is I have some of the background that Debbie and Nick have. I started this business as a solopreneur back in 1991, and I was a managed service provider for many, many years. So I got a little bit of an understanding of what they go through day in and day out. Crowe, a lot of people haven't heard of us. The name's kind of just out there, but I tell people often that we're the largest CPA and consulting firm that people probably haven't heard of. We are about 4,000 people, 40 offices across the U.S. I am based here in Lexington. As you and I, talked about a little bit earlier, you consider me the GOAT. All right, I get it. It's like LeBron and Glen. Same conversation.
I was thinking Billy, but go ahead.
Okay. Billy Carter or
no.
So I sometimes kind of think of myself as the grandfather of cybersecurity in Lexington, and
Yes.
I started this in interestingly enough almost 20 years ago, probably within a week or 2 of now. We'd come out of Y2K and literally we're, what's next? What are we going to do? And bought a Gartner report, spent $10,000 on this stack of paper, and what are the hot trends in technology. And I'm not sure we didn't have maybe a little toast and throw a dart at the report and landed on cybersecurity. So what's great and what's been a lot of fun over 20 years is to see the evolution of the importance of cybersecurity, and the people in our state that I've been fortunate enough to work with, in some cases to help them get started in their career, to support them in other opportunities. So been a lot of fun. Looking forward to hearing what you folks have to ask and say today, and just hear what Debbie and Nick have to say as well. So thanks for having me on. And I think you bought me dinner sooner than you asked me to be on the show. So, and both those took a long time.
Yes. Yeah. All right, Nick, what about yourself?
So I've been in, I guess, the IT field for around 15 years. I started doing IT when I was working actually with Bill, and then shortly after that moved into healthcare, managing IT director, being the IT director for a cardiology firm. So security has always been sort of at the forefront of all the IT tasks I've had to do because of HIPAA and just the general vibe you get when you're working in healthcare. From there, I went to an IT managed services provider, and like a lot of solopreneurs or other entrepreneurs, you sort of get a little bit of an itch and realize you might want to be doing this on your own. And so that's kind of my history. Is got to that point, and we started Pelycon a few years ago with a few other engineers. The main thing we do is, we're kind of a general IT managed services provider, but you can't do IT anymore without focusing on security, business continuity, disaster recovery. I think it all kind of falls under the same umbrella anymore. You can't really have one part of a solution without talking about the security that goes along with it. So we've been kind of going strong for a few years now, and have focused on cybersecurity just lately, I guess for obvious reasons. We've got everybody starting to work at home a little bit more, and everyone is taking note of what needs to be done. So happy to be here. Thanks, Bill. And we're excited for the questions.
Yeah, so that's actually a great segue. One of the things Debbie and I talk about all the time is that this session originally started, or our time for the 4 o'clock focus, when COVID started, and we thought, there's so many business stories that can be told, and we've got how are we dealing with it? What do we need to do? Well, now we've transitioned into that's enlightened us a bit, and so now we're trying to figure out where do we go from here. And so whether somebody's working from home, because some companies they've always had remote folks, or they are just now dipping into that. What I'd love to know first, before we get into some of the questions I sent to these guys ahead of time, is, Debbie, what are your questions? Because there are a number of people who are going to see this after the fact, who are going to wonder how to do certain things as the solopreneur or somebody working remotely, working from home. Hit these guys with a couple questions, and let's hear what they have to say.
Sure. So I come to it kind of as a perspective of obviously being a home-based business with just me and no real employees, but also representing, 10 or so different small business owners and some of the issues that they face. And I think that one of the biggest fears that we all have is, kind of the general feeling of being hacked or being duped, wondering if we're targets of our competitors, specifically as it relates to maybe hacking into our social media sites or anything public facing, the website, anything like that could therefore do our business harm that we could never necessarily prove wasn't us behind as the motive behind it. So kind of like to understand a little bit about that. And then a secondary question I had is, one of my clients actually is in the insurance business, and she has built quite a substantial portfolio selling insurance policies on cybersecurity to small businesses. And I wondered what your opinions were about those insurance policies and what business owners should be looking for to make sure that they're buying effective policies. So those are just kind of a couple things that came to my mind that kind of cross my desk every so often.
All right, Glenn, you're up.
You're looking for a volunteer?
No. We're doing G and N for the first part of today, and then we're doing N and G.
Oh, okay. So let me take the second one first. I think cyber insurance is something that has obviously evolved over the last few years. And geez, I remember the first application that I filled out with a client. It was probably 8 or 9 years ago, and if it was a test, I failed. All right, and I think unfortunately a lot of clients today, or a lot of companies out there, fail that test, and when they're filling out the applications, and certainly the insurance carriers have gotten better in coaching them through the process and helping them to understand, hey, here's what you're supposed to be telling us, and you're not quite answering that the right way. But I think there's still a risk with cyber insurance, and that is that your friends, clients, and prospects don't complete this accurately and correctly, and then something happens. And I know Bill has done quite a bit of consulting around cyber insurance, and certainly has addressed this with a lot of companies. But we've seen this implication of shared liability, where an insurance company comes in and says, hey, you told us that your policy was that passwords were going to change every 30 days, but hey, we've evaluated this claim, we've sent our forensics people in, and you weren't. All right, so that's a very simple example, but I think it's one of the things that, as people consider the insurance coverage that they're purchasing, is that they completely understand the answers that they're giving. And if they don't, that they've got to reach out to people, whether it's their managed service provider or a consultant like Bill, to help them go through that process, so there's no real surprises when there's a real surprise. All right. I think that to go back to your first question, Debbie, from a personal experience, I think the risk that you talked about around your social media, around your IP is not, and I'll be careful, I don't think it's enormous. All right. I think that what we're seeing so much more of today is around ransomware, because it's so easy to do, and virtually anybody can be a target. Someone has to intentionally be calling you out to decide that, hey, they're going to go deface your website or to create problems for you on social media. And that's not to say it can't happen, but I think the vast majority of what we see clients dealing with day in and day out is ransomware today. And that's not just large businesses, that's small businesses, it's mid-sized businesses. You could be hit very easily. And I'd love to hear, Nick and Bill maybe talk about some of the things that they tell their clients, to do to make sure that you're resilient to those attempts for ransomware and so forth. And they may have a different opinion, but I just think day in and day out, that's not the type of activity. I think it goes back to the kiddie scripters or whatever they were called, that wanted to kind of get their kicks just defacing websites and causing people that kind of problem. This is a for-profit business today to cause damage and to hit companies with ransomware. Some of the smartest people in the world, that's what they do all day long. So kind of my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, I was going to contribute to this on the insurance side of things. I've spoken with a handful of cybersecurity insurance providers. What I've been searching for as an IT provider is an insurance policy that will allow you to lower premiums based on the measures you're taking to protect yourself and your network and your business. The same way you can get a deal or a lower premium on insurance if you own a fire extinguisher or if you have a safe driving record. I don't understand why you can't lower your premium for having a certain firewall, managed antivirus, all the things that an IT provider recommend to keep you safe. So I have personally noticed, or my opinion is, it feels a little bit like the Wild West when it comes to cybersecurity insurance. A lot of I've heard say, get about $500,000 of coverage if you're a small business. That's like a good, it feels like they're killing a mosquito with a hammer, if you know what I mean. They don't really know how to be very surgical about this stuff. And so I don't know if my outlook is bleak on that. I just feel like the insurance providers don't have the education as far as tech goes to be sort of intelligent about the premiums they offer and the coverage they offer. It seems like they're offering big umbrella types of coverages just without a lot of thought behind it.
Yeah. Nick, I will tell you, I recently did find a carrier that'll do it.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
So I haven't sent it to you yet, but for those of you who are interested, who are on today, please let me know if you are interested, because finally found someone who will say, if you are educating your employees, if you are putting the right tech in place and you're taking precautions, then it will actually impact your premium. So yes, and it was literally a week old. So
Bill,
I
I would add to that the larger companies, that really kind of is in place. There
correct.
are,
Yes.
there's the analytical aspect of it where the larger companies who are spending, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars a year on cyber insurance, have that kind of purchasing power to do that. On the smaller companies, you're absolutely right. And to hear that is wonderful, because, I think the other thing to consider is cyber insurance isn't that expensive.
No.
So the incentive on that insurance carrier to find ways to save you money isn't that great. So I think it's great that you have found somebody. Look forward to hearing who that is.
So Debbie, to answer your question as a solopreneur, or even some of our small business attendees, one of the things to keep in mind is that most of these insurance policies will offer 25 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand worth of coverage.
Right.
That will just barely cover anything. And that's only if the problem is small. So the insurance carriers do that so that they can say, we have a modicum of coverage for you. And when you sign that, you're saying that's okay, that's enough. So I would encourage all of our attendees and anyone watching this in the future, get a real assessment done to figure out what your exposure is. And that's the kind of thing that needs to be to be covered.
I heard, Bill, I heard something interesting the other day. We were talking to one of our partners, and they do global incident response, but on even a small to mid-sized business, the average cost of just the professional fees around an incident response is somewhere in the $50,000 to $60,000 neighborhood. So it's what you said, it doesn't cover you.
Yeah, it won't at all. All right. So question for both of you. We'll go, Glenn, again with you first. Top 3 recommendations. Now, most of our audience is not a giant organizations. So what I want you to do is taper those 3 down to the small to medium-sized business. And then if you've got anything you want to add in on the larger ones, go ahead and add that one. But the majority of our audience with Commerce Lexington is the SME business.
Yeah. No, I don't think they're any different. I think training, right? We have to train the people who are on the front lines, the employees. If I think about 75, 80% of the security incidents that I see, if it's not greater than that, it's because an employee, and I've even seen it out of the chief information security officers, have clicked on an email that they shouldn't have clicked on. They made a mistake. So we have to continually train, right? And software to do that is cheap. All right, it's very inexpensive per user. It allows you to provide training. It allows you to do testing. When those employees fail, you send them back and you say, hey, you do some more training. All right, and you can find fun ways to do this. Have contests, have different ways to celebrate success. But that is absolutely number one. I don't care if it's Debbie and your solo entrepreneur, or if it's a 100,000 employee company. Learn what to do and what not to do. Patch management. All right, this is so important yet so overlooked. Even on our home computers, do we stay up to date with Microsoft patches or Apple patches? On our phones, do we stay up to date with them? It's absolutely critical. It's different for Bill than it is for Glen at Crowe, but it's the same. All right, it's critical that we do that, because so many of the vulnerabilities that are seen are fixed. All right, but if we don't take the time as small businesses or large businesses and put the effort towards remediating and patching, we're opening the door wider. All right? So we got to train, we got to patch, we test. All right, small businesses can find ways to test what they've done. Online, you can pay to have someone do a vulnerability scan, or you can have someone do a test to see if they can get into your environment. And our home environments tend to be so weak. All right, we bought our environments, we built our networks around playing games, watching TV, occasional work from home, not to do productive business. And we're in that situation today. We're here to make a living from home. I haven't been in my office since March. All right. And it's a mile away. So my network has to be as secure as my office. And I think the third thing is and this gets a little bit further up on the business size, and that's really having visibility into what's going on. I like to ask people, do you think the hackers have better visibility, or you have better visibility into what's going on in your network? And I think we could acknowledge as IT professionals that in most cases, without the proper visibility in place, the monitoring, the eyes on what's going on, that the hackers have greater visibility into my network than I do, and that creates risk. So training, patch management, and really having a way to monitor what's going on. And the fourth, this is a freebie, make sure everything's backed up to a place that is kind of out of your way, in the cloud, off your network. So if you do get hit, you can go back to that. Definitely.
All right, Nick, and yours? I'm guessing you might echo one or two of those.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of redundancy here. And it kind of goes without saying, the backup thing. I didn't even go there because, to me, at least in my head, it's implied. But I know not everybody thinks of that. When you think about Dropbox or any of these other, or iCloud, iPhoto, any of the places you're keeping your photos, are they backed up? Are they, what if you get ransomware in your machine? So yeah, a good backup solution is definitely key, and it didn't even go mentioned here in my top 3 because it should already be there. It should be step 0, I guess, in my head. But I think the only new thing I have here, I agree with you that like patching, managed antivirus or good antivirus with EDR, with endpoint detection and response.
Thanks for saying that, because that was gonna be our first conflict if you did.
Yeah. So
why don't you explain what that is? I think it's great, because everybody thinks I've got AV and I'm covered, but EDR is so much more.
Yes, the way I describe it normally is, for non-tech people, your antivirus is like a bouncer to a club. Let's say you want to get into a club. The bouncer has a list of who can get in or who can't get in. Antivirus is more of a list of who can't get in, right? So it's got a list of known viruses. Can you get in or not? Yes or no. Once you're in, you get to do whatever you want in the club. That's the old antivirus. EDR, in my head at least, is more of like a security camera system in the club. It's looking for who's fighting at the bar. It's looking for suspicious behavior. And so despite who got past the bouncer, if they're up to no good, if a lot of files start changing at once, your EDR system is going to freeze that. It's going to quarantine that, and it's going to potentially take that computer off the network or isolate it so it can't spread to others. So that's a huge step up from, the old school antivirus, whatever you want to call it.
And Nick, if I might add to that, I thought that's great. That's exactly right. I think the other thing that we see happen oftentimes is when there is a breach, there's nothing to go back to. So if you think about that bar and the bouncer and the video, what we're looking for is, hey, can I go back 30 days?
Yeah.
See, when Bill Dotson punched that person in the face. And, Bill Dotson. So I think that's the added piece to it, is that investigative component.
Definitely.
Sorry,
definitely.
So here's a question that stretches throughout any size company or industry. What recommendations do you all have? And Debbie, I want you to chime in on this one, or I would love for you to make security part of the culture of a company, so that everyone's aware, like, I just got something that looks a little off. What do I do now? So Glenn and Nick can definitely talk about, what they're seeing in companies, but you have the marketing perspective to be able to say, how do we take something like security and compliance, which everybody thinks is boring and they don't want to do it,
right,
and then move it into something that is practical and it's a part of the culture. Glenn, you hinted earlier that it was kind of fun, like you've got to turn something into this that's fun. So what I want to do, Nick, if you don't mind, give your recommendations, then Glenn yours, and then Debbie, finally take what they said and then say what's realistic, to really do, because your whole profession is about having people say, tell me more, I want more. So how do we take what they're about to say and then we put that into the culture of a company?
Perfect.
So Nick, you're up.
Okay, so what we have, a part of like a security bundle we offer is includes user awareness training, which I always pitch as a, it doesn't matter how big of a firewall, how expensive of all this tech you put in a network, there's always a gap. There's always a gap, and it's the user awareness kind of gap there. So it doesn't matter how much spam you've blocked and all that. You might get somebody still clicking a link or adding credentials to somewhere where they shouldn't have. And so user awareness training is kind of huge. We have used in the past, we've used a service called KnowBe4, which I'm sure a lot of folks are familiar with. My wife works at a public library and they have KnowBe4, and that was where I got my introduction. It's pretty great. I mean, I don't think anybody in this presentation loves doing, OSHA training and HIPAA training and all that stuff. It's even like sexual harassment training. It's always very lame. It's videos. KnowBe4 takes it and makes it a little bit more fun. There's games to play. But on top of that, and a lot of other services do this, is a phishing campaign or a phishing simulation. We do this with our clients. I don't know how to make this fun or relevant, but when people are getting every month or every quarter getting sent, fake phishing emails, and based on actual methods, if they sort of fall for it or click that link, they're going to be informed that they goofed up basically, and maybe have to go through more training or see another video. KnowBe4 makes that simple, but we noticed it puts it in everyone's head. It makes everybody aware that I'm going to be tested here, and there's a little bit of back and forth that I've noticed even in some doctors' offices where we've got a handful of nurses and they're like, "Oh, did you get that link yesterday? Did you click it? Did I click it?" And it with the right introduction and the right if you prepare your staff the right way, it can be a little bit fun, and it kind of keeps everybody, it's almost like they own part of the security of the network. They're all taking part in owning it, because it's been made clear to them that you can't just sit back and let the firewall do the work. Everybody has to sort of participate in keeping the office or the network, the business safe, because there's IP that they have that people can get from them if they mess up, to put it bluntly. So for me, user awareness training is, that's for me the best way to keep the staff involved in keep it at the forefront there.
All right, Glenn, how about you?
I agree. First of all, KnowBe4 has been around a while. It was the first, user awareness training technology that we kind of found and latched onto and recommended, and we sell it to our clients at what it costs us generally, because we think that it's such an important aspect of what they do. And I think from there, just a lot of communication. It's not okay to mess up, but it is okay. All right. So having that willingness to communicate when something happens. I've seen situations where an employee clicked on a link inadvertently and hid it. All right, they didn't let their management or their IT department or security department know what happened, and the impact of that is enormous. That particular malicious activity sat in that environment for maybe months, and the longer malicious activity or sits in an environment, the more costly it is to get rid of it, to react to it once that something happens. So I think making sure that employees not only go through that training, but understand if you make a mistake, it's okay, but make sure you don't quadruple the impact of that mistake by not telling someone. So
yeah, I could add
the only thing I would add.
Those phishing campaigns, for me at least, I like, you make your mistakes early and often, to make the small ones early and often so that you learn, they're the best teacher. A user awareness training and simulated phishing kind of allows your staff to maybe make their mistakes in the simulation rather than in the real life, which is obviously.
I think the other challenge we've got, Nick, and we're in this Groundhog Day world right now, huh? So, we all, get up early and we work at our computers and we go have dinner, whatever, we come sit back down. I couldn't imagine how many hours people are working on average compared to what they worked pre-COVID. And I think one of the things is we get tired. We get, just screen fatigue, meeting fatigue, et cetera. And it's higher risk. it's much more likely that we sit there and we open an email that says, hey, this attachment has your new pay stub in it. I don't know. And it's secure. So click on it, type your password in, and you'll get it. All right. But it wasn't real. It was phishing. So I think so much is contributing to that, and just a heightened awareness is important as we go through this process.
So Debbie, based on what you've heard,
Yeah. So
does that make you want to participate in that?
Well, here's what I think that I hear a lot of times, and probably maybe kind of part of where I come from is, if there's a lot of confusion around a category, people tend to avoid it. So I've found that with my role as a marketing consultant, I typically work directly with CEOs who don't have a marketing person, and they've pretty much kind of stopped marketing altogether because they've had a past bad experience or haven't felt they knew how to calculate the return on investment. So they just now are kind of going with word of mouth and repeat customers, and they're making it, they're doing okay, but not with a lot of future growth goals. So I come in and I kind of package it up and make it a little bit easier for them. So it occurs to me that if there was a opportunity to partner with somebody like Bill or another consultant, where you had maybe a monthly subscription package that was IT dedicated, that not only had the support that you would have with regard to, okay, something with my technology went wrong, but also had the training support, the support to help you fill out the insurance application, some of the things that we've discussed today on protecting yourselves from ransomware, some of those types of things that are maybe you just pay for as a business owner on an ongoing basis, as an ongoing security consultant, that maybe that's an easy check to write at the end of every month to give people a little bit of peace of mind. Maybe that comes with a once a month test, of all of your employees' computer systems and their activity and anything that might be doing that's concerning. I don't know how logistically difficult that would be or how much cost that might incur, but it occurs to me if somebody's willing to have a monthly fee for their CPA, probably a monthly fee for their attorney, a monthly fee for their marketing consultant, a monthly fee for their technology infrastructure, that maybe this cyber add-on and security add-on makes some sense.
Yeah, I'll say if you have the, I don't know if people believe this, but for me, if it's not core to your business, you should be outsourcing it. And so if it's not core to how you define your brand and your company, it should be outsourced. And so there are companies that can certainly do that. The thing that I think I've found most prevalent in organizations that are successful in this is that they have a culture of their own. It's not a place that I just go to show up at work, get a paycheck, and then I leave. I'm actually part of a team. And I think ultimately that's what a lot of businesses need, is they need to understand that as a part of having your culture, the security and the awareness is a part of this. So we've talked about some of the tools and things like that. I think, Glenn, when you mentioned that it's okay to mess up, like people need to feel comfortable bringing those things forward, because a lot of times it's not them doing anything wrong, it's them receiving something that's wrong. And then just make all of the executives in the organization, no matter how big or small, need to make sure people are okay reporting things like that and knowing that there's no consequence that they may have done something wrong, because we all know tech scares a lot of people. It's kind of like magic. And so if I'm quiet and I don't report anything, maybe that's okay. Turns out that's probably not okay. And so maybe the advice today, based on what I've learned, is that execs, leaders, et cetera, need to tell people it's okay to report these things. Doesn't mean you did anything wrong. We know it's not an if, but a when. We do have a question. We have just a few minutes. And if you all see on your Q&A, the question, it is two-factor authentication the worst idea ever to enter security, or is there anything worse than that?
I want to say what's worse. Interesting, Chad put that up there.
Yeah,
I'll give you what's worse is antivirus, in the belief that will stop your problems. Right?
Yeah. What I tell everybody is when we talk about turning on MFA or 2FA or whatever you want to call it, is security and sort of convenience are completely inverse almost 100% of the time. So if you want to be the highest security, you want to work at the Department of Defense, get ready to take forever to log into something or to get into the building or whatever you want to describe it as. And it's all kind of the same to me. So yeah, I think multi-factor, I also tell people though, it's almost, obviously you can't say it is a guarantee, it's not 100%, but if somebody can tell me how you can get into my email now that I have MFA turned on, I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear how you can kind of get past that security layer. It is a fantastic way to keep things secure. However, if you're like me, I have an Apple Watch here with Google Authenticator, and I haven't counted recently, but I've got at least 13 or 15 codes rotating every minute for all the different things I have to log in. I realize I'm a IT provider, so we have a lot more going on there, but I think for the average person, maybe you guys can contribute to this, but it's, multi-factor authentication is, I guess I would say, a really, really good and secure way to keep things safe. But yeah, it's absolutely horrible when it comes to ease of use and that kind of thing, or at least keeping things flowing,
Yeah. I've learned that it's like the old 80s or 90s movies where you would see people in New York and they would have 15 locks on the door. That's what MFA is. You really ideally want to put a key in, and that's the password. You're the person that has it. You want to put the key in, you want to get in, piece of cake. Well, nowadays I see a lot of companies who think that the SMS two-factor authentication, so I put in my username, I put in my password, and then it texts me a code. That's not secure at all. And it's been proven over and over that it's not secure. And so for everyone listening, if that's how you do it, you might as well not have it at all. I mean, it's better than nothing, but barely better than nothing. You do need to have those apps on, and especially for people who are in a sort of VIP position, they handle sensitive info, or they've got access to many systems. Because if I'm a bad guy, I'm going after that person. And Glenn, you mentioned it, at home. I'm not trying to hack their company. They've got firewalls there and they've got all kinds of other things. I'm going to drive by their house and I'm going to try to get on their home Wi-Fi, which is probably not something that's been paid for, that is of any real security. And then I'm going to try to hijack that and get into the company network. And most people reuse those passwords. So, that's probably one of the bigger items that we have is the reuse of the passwords that are out there in companies that just haven't turned on that multi-factor. And I can tell you, I've seen from the tech insurance side, people answer that they have certain things and they don't, and their claims are denied. So do you have multi-factor? You say yes, but it turns out you don't use it and you got hacked, then we're not covering you. So those are the kinds of things that, unfortunately, we do have to have until we have a better solution for things. All right. So we are in our last couple of minutes. I do want to say or ask one final question here, and that's one that comes up a lot when we work with clients. And that is, what amount of money should I spend per employee or company revenue, or what is the metric of what I need to spend on security and security awareness education? Do you have anything to say? And Nick, you're up first this time.
This is a difficult one. I don't know if I can give a good specific answer to this because everybody's different. Every company's different. I would kind of forward this to, or point this to the question, how much is downtime worth? Which is the main question you ask anybody with regard to security, or when you're trying to get somebody, on a backup solution. How much is downtime worth? And downtime is easily defined, but you can get to downtime many different ways. It can be your internet's out. It can be your computer has a problem. It can be you got hacked. It could be your email's been compromised. We can go on and on with how many different ways, but how much is it costing your company if 3 of the 10 staff or 20 of the 3,000 staff or whatever can't work and can't do what they're doing? On top of that, add the stress of deadlines and all the other craziness all of us are dealing with. So to me, I guess that helps you measure the importance of it and how much it's worth to you. I don't know if I'm willing to tell you how much I think someone should spend. It should be it should correspond to what you value that person's doing. I think there's a handful of things you can do to get everybody to a certain degree and a certain layer. And then like a lot of other things, there's a few solutions out there that really get you to 100% or to 99.9% above 98%, that kind of a thing. I can't help but be vague here because, like I said, I think everybody's a little bit different. So I'm not trying to dodge it, but I think if you're, depending on your business and depending on your compliance needs, we've got people out there that are doing HIPAA compliance versus PCI compliance and all the other things out there. Those are going to steer the security solutions you're going to implement into your network.
Okay, Glenn?
I think, Bill, it begins with an assessment of, where are the keys to the kingdom, the jewels within the kingdom. And you may have a manufacturing company that has a very low probability of cyber risk, but a very large loss. All right. You could have healthcare companies that have both are very high. So I think it really depends on the type of business you're looking at. I've seen numbers from 1 to 13% of your IT budget. All right. That's not, you can't really give an answer based on that type of metric. But I think, first of all, you have to help your clients and companies have to sit down and understand what is my risk and what's the potential loss. There are tools out there as you go up market. I think you've actually probably seen Crowe Cyber Aware, where we've worked with the company to develop an analytics tool that you answer 400 questions that are similar to applying for cyber insurance. In fact, it was developed through a partnership with a cyber insurance company. So based upon the answers to those questions, it helps you assess what the potential loss is and therefore what you should be spending. I don't think there's a rule of thumb. I think there's certain absolutes, as we talked about earlier, and you got to get those covered, and then you've got to be looking to mature, because this is not a risk that is declining. This risk is increasing. So therefore, you got to continue to assess where you are and where you want to go.
Yeah. So Debbie, we'll go through a little exercise here to wrap this up. There's a stat that's out there, and if I told you that you could make $35,000 a day tax free, would you do it? Now, I'm not going to tell you what you got to do, but based on cybersecurity, would you do it?
Right. No.
No. Okay. Well, so back in the day of
Bill, do you have a side business?
Well, no. This is.
Do you have oceanfront property?
Well, one of the biggest questions that I get whenever I do a presentation at an association or at a conference is, Bill, why do these people who hack or do ransomware, why do they do that? They could repurpose their activity, their know-how, et cetera. And I say, well, okay, so I know that question's coming. And what we'll do is I'll say, okay, and generally the crowds that I present to, there's a group of people, and I'll say, who's got some shady morals in here? And somebody always points at somebody else, and I'll say, okay, well, what's your desire to retire? If you could live the lifestyle you wanted with an unlimited bank account, what would you do? And they start naming things. So I start saying, well, what's this cost? What's that cost? And we come up with a number. Well, we take that number and we divide it by about $35,000 a day. And this was 2 years ago. And then what they find out is they could live the life that they wanted on less than 1 year of being a cyber criminal.
Wow.
And at that point, the question of why do these people do this becomes very obvious. It pays.
Right.
It pays a lot. And so if anybody out there who's watching us wants to know why are the people doing what they do, it's because it pays, and it pays well. And there are very few consequences to it because you're crossing state and international border lines. So keep in mind that the larger companies have the resources to be able to fight against a lot of this stuff. It's the small and medium-sized companies that have a real challenge doing it. They put it off and things like that. And so companies like Crowe and like Nick's company, Pelycon, they help protect against all of these things. And whether you choose their companies or some other Commerce Lexington companies, I will tell you, you need to do something other than ignore it, because apathy is a sure way to find yourself on the end of a call to your insurance guy or gal and hearing you don't have that coverage. And then you're faced with a huge recovery fee. So I don't mean to scare everyone, but I will tell you, if you don't take advantage of proactive like work, then you will be reactive on this for sure. Any final comments? I know, Nick, you've made an offer to some people, which you can put in the chat if you want to. If they want a presentation on how to secure their business, feel free to put that in the chat. That'll go out to everyone. Glenn, is there anything that from Crowe's perspective that you'd like to share before we wrap up today?
No, I'll be glad to put my email address in. And the one thing you didn't say, Bill, that I think you should, on a 1 to 10, how difficult is the work required to make that $35,000 a day?
Oh, I can outsource it now. I can literally go on the dark web and buy it, and somebody will do it for me.
Wow.
It's about a 1.
I mean, frankly, my children could do it. They could, if they knew how to get to the dark web, which is a free browser thing, and they had a way to pay in Bitcoin, they could outsource and start a ransomware campaign tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to add is echo what you said is if you don't have IT help, get it, whether it's calling Glenn or calling us, get somebody. And if you need help finding somebody and you don't want to go with us, I would be happy to help, because it's almost like get someone that can help you. A real quick story. We have 2 clients that happen to share a CPA. And so we had one client, I happened to be at their office, and they just got an email from the CPA with a link in it. They clicked it because that's what you do. And it wasn't from their CPA. It was the CPA had been phished. And so they immediately came to me because they were told, that was a bad email. Don't click the link. So I was able to actually look up. I happen to know I have another client using the same CPA. I had to call them and warn them. That's something you're only going to get when you have sort of a hub of IT help. That's a pretty specific story, I realize, but having someone to call when you have these panic moments is huge. It doesn't have to be us or Glenn here, but I would encourage everybody to at least have somebody you can call to get good educated help when you need it.
For sure. Debbie, any final comments before we sign off for the day?
Just to say thank you, everybody, and to stay tuned for our November topics. Bill and I are meeting on that tomorrow, so we'll be in touch. And I appreciate if you guys could fill out the survey as attendees as well.
Yes, for sure. This will be published a little later tonight. It'll be in our regular 4 o'clock focused playlist that is on YouTube. So if you are interested in this, or you know somebody who may be, that'll be online tonight. You'll get an email about it tomorrow. Feel free to share that. And if you've got any other questions for our panelists today, or Debbie or myself, send those in. And thank you all very much for the time today. I am going to shut off the audio and the video, and we are going to wrap it up with a little link to our survey. So have a great evening, and let's
Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Take care.
Have a great night.
Thank you.